My name is James Dew, and I will be presenting about Japan. The reason I chose Japan as the country to examine is because I've always had a very deep fascination with Japan and the Japanese culture. This started, man, from when I was a child. When I was younger, my father was in the military, and he went everywhere. He traveled everywhere. But I remember him always saying that his favorite places to be were Japan first of all, in the Philippines. But his favorite place was Japan, and he would often tell me stories of what he did while he was there, and the different martial arts masters he got to train with, and the different techniques he got to learn, the different food that he got to eat, the scenery. He said Japan is absolutely beautiful. And so as a child, I was extremely excited about Japan and the culture, and I wanted to learn everything that I could. As far as the martial arts goes, I was 100% karate kid. I wanted to do karate, kenjutsu, which is a sword art, kendo, which is another sword art, more sport than actual Budo, which is battle-ready martial arts. Ninjutsu, which is ninjas, like we know in America, they're called shinobi. In Japan, all of those things, all those different martial arts I was interested in. My father taught me the basics, and I later on in life did more self-study, and I just continued my fascination with Japan. A few other things that I really love about the country is the fashion. Japanese have some very interesting fashion. Some of it is a little bold for my taste. I could never wear it, but it's always interesting to see what they have, what the new season brings. It's always very fun. My wife and I kind of pull up photos and we have a good time. Another thing that I'm absolutely in love with is Japanese cuisine. This might sound a little cliche, but I love sushi. Absolutely love sushi and sashimi. Sashimi is just raw slices of fish. It's not in a roll or anything like that. You can get a slice of fish on top of like rice, like a rice ball. So I love that. What else? I like ramen as well. Ramen is good. So those are the reasons why I chose Japan. I think that it is a good place to start off, kind of in the beginning, with Japan's history with the internet. I found it interesting to learn that, and it makes sense, that Japan's initial dealings with the internet, it was very restricted. The government wanted to keep the internet kind of under wraps, and this has to do with Japanese tradition. They're a very tradition-minded culture, and back then internet was something new. It was foreign. It was kind of for the younger individuals, people who they thought were lazy, almost is a word for it. We didn't want to have to work hard. But there was a man, and his name is Professor Murai, Professor Jun Murai. He's often called the godfather of the Japanese internet, because he has a PhD in computer science, and he is a professor in Japan, and he helped to start the internet revolution in Japan. He fought very hard. He and some colleagues, they fought very hard to get the first initial internet system in Japan, and it was called the Japan University Unix Network, JUNET for short, JUNET, JUNET, and that was in 1984. And what they did, this was a very basic system. It connected, I think, 3 or 4 different universities together on one network, and it allowed them to be able to share information across this network. So that was like the very first introductions of the internet. And a couple of years later, Professor Murai again, he as well as some other colleagues, they founded WIDE, which is Widely Integrated Distributed Environment. And this allowed Japan to connect internationally. So they had a network that they could connect to America with Europe, a little bit, and they used direct IP, which is Internet Protocol. Okay, so this system was a little faster, and it allowed for international communication. So after this, this was in 1998. Excuse me. I apologize. 1988 is when Wide was founded. And around this time, it became more known to the Japanese culture that the internet was a thing, and there was immense potential and desire to have access to the internet, this thing called the internet. The Japanese government, yet again, they did not want the general public to have unlimited access to the internet. So a very select group of individuals in select locations throughout Japan were given minimal access to the internet. And once again, Professor Jun Murai, he helped in 1992. In 1992, he helped found the Internet Initiative of Japan, or IIJ. That was in 1992. And this brought competitive alternatives to the government-operated internet system. Now, this brought other issues. In Japan, there are many different private internet service providers, okay, ISPs. At the time, the Nippon Telephone and Telegraph Company, NTT, they were the main telecommunications entity in Japan. NTT and SoftBank Corporation. Those are the two main telecommunications organizations in Japan. And so when these little ISPs started to pop up, they didn't have access to the faster connections, so they also didn't have the funding, the backing. So they had to charge a much higher price, and the internet quality was subpar compared to NTT and SoftBank Corporation. But it did allow general users to have access to the internet. Now in 1995. A 6.9 earthquake hit Kobe, Japan. Okay, many people lost their lives. It was a terrible event. But through this event, it is believed that this event helped the government to see the necessity for the internet. You had some people come in, some key people. There's a gentleman from Canada, Mr. Roger, who Boisevert, who wanted the government to see that if we do not implement internet and fast connection internet, we're not going to be able to we're not going to be able to connect to the world. You're not going to be able to connect to the world. Your businesses will fall behind other businesses across the globe. You will not have access to global information as fast as other nations. And the Japanese government, they never want to lose face. The Japanese never want to lose face. So of course, with that proposal, they opted to have him come in, and he started a company called Global Online. And when he started off, he had no money, but when he sold it in 1999, it was worth $70 million. So he did fairly well. And between when the earthquake in 1995 happened in Kobe, between 1995 and 1996, after the implementation of Global Online, internet use in Japan rose by 41%. And at that time, that was the largest increase that they had ever seen. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. So we're going to jump to the 2000s. From 2000 to 2010, Japan's internet users went from 49.1 million to 99.1 million, which is a growth of just over 111%. Okay, this large increase was due mainly in part to Japanese government. They donated 1 trillion yen to help fund IT initiatives across the country. Other reasons were companies such as SoftBank, okay, and NTT. They decided to, okay, let's embrace the internet. All right, NTT, they have a subsidiary called Docomo, okay, and they're kind of like what Verizon is here in America, in Japan. Top level wireless mobile service provider. They have over 60 million customers. They have a 3G network and a 4G LTE network that they have just rolled out. And Docomo was the first mobile phone and mobile company. So how we are on our phones and we aren't on the internet all the time, they were the first ones to do that in Japan. In the beginning, they had a phone that just allowed you to send emails and browse, I think, 4 or 5 selected websites. Okay, but nowadays, they have iPhones out there as well, and Samsungs, and like I said, it's the equivalent of a Verizon. In 2011, there was an earthquake that hit. It was that hit a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, and it is what led to the Fukushima nuclear disaster. With this brought a lot of problems to Japan. It brought a lot of negative press. International communication wasn't what it should be. A lot of people complained that Japan was not communicating accurately and in a timely fashion with the rest of the world. It could have been handled better, but Japan did save a little bit of face. They shut down many nuclear plants. They tried to reevaluate containment and prevention protocols. But what's interesting is that recently, just this year actually, they have reevaluated that, and they said, you know what, we might want to continue to have nuclear plants and to use nuclear energy. Overall, though, through companies like Sony, which was ranked in 2012 the #2 most reputable company in the world, and Toyota and Honda, these types of companies have helped keep Japan at the forefront, all right, up there with America, with us, and with the United Kingdom, with China. Even they are still within that core nation group, and they're still widely recognized. People the world over buy Sony products. People the world over buy Toyotas and Lexus and Hondas. Toyota has been the #1 purchased car in America for like the past 12 or 13 years straight. So Japan is still doing very well. Their international communication procedures are phenomenal. To have such a great track record with their products, which back in the day, if something was made in Japan, people thought it was rubbish, but nowadays we all know Japanese products are among some of the highest quality. I was excited and very honored to be able to do this on Japan. I look forward to maybe making a trip to Japan one of these days and enjoying a nice vacation. Maybe take my father along with me and reminisce and enjoy. Thank you.